here because sometimes I don't want to get all formal. I just want to cook and share what I'm cooking with you. Today I'm making a very delicious stuffed shell recipe that's been a family favorite for a really long time. It was adapted from a Cooking Light book back in the 1990s, and I modified it a little bit because Cooking Light has a tendency to be a little bit stingy with their spices and herbs and salt, and I'm not. So this is my version of stuffed shells, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's cook. Okay, now we're going to make a really tasty marinara sauce, and it's really simple to do. What we're going to start with is some extra virgin olive oil. We have 6 sliced cloves of garlic, and you might notice this nice garlic is really purplish. That's because it's fresh garlic from the farmer's market, and it's so different than what you're going to find in the grocery store. Get it if you can. If you can't, just use your regular garlic. And then we've got a 28-ounce can of plum tomatoes in juice. You can buy your tomatoes already crushed or chopped, but I like to do it myself because they have to put whole tomatoes in here, which means they have to use the best tomatoes they have. A little bit of pepperoncinis, and then we have our pepper, freshly ground pepper, and some basil. This is about 8 leaves of basil, which we will chiffonade. So here's our basil in a chiffonade, and as you all probably know, a chiffonade simply means really thinly sliced. This little saucepan. We're going to heat this up over a medium-low heat. Whenever you're working with these stainless steel pans, make sure you don't use too high a heat, and make sure you allow your pan to get hot before you add the oil or the food to it. That will help you keep it from sticking to the bottom, which is one of the biggest complaints people have about these pans. You can feel when it's warm. Yes, that's warm. Ow! Okay, be careful with that. And now you want to add your oil. We're going to add about 1/4 cup of oil. Make sure that gets hot as well. I'm not sticking my finger in that. So now that the oil's hot, I'm going to add my garlic and just get that started. To flavor the oil. Already smells good. There's nothing smells better than garlic and olive oil sauteing together. And then I'm going to add my tomatoes. Now you can break these up in a couple of ways. You can use a couple of spoons to break it up, or some forks. If you wanted to, before you poured them in, you could have used your hands. I wouldn't recommend doing that once they're in the pot. Or I'm going to use a potato masher and just mash them up as they start to cook. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of a simmer going, we are going to use this high-tech piece of equipment to start smashing and smashing until we get these tomatoes all broke up into a fine sauce. You could also do this in a blender or a food processor if you were so inclined. I just don't find it necessary to really dirty up a whole nother piece of equipment. But hey, it's your house, it's your dishes, do what you want. We've got them into a nice sauce consistency. I stirred in the basil, the red pepper flakes or pepperoncini, and some salt. About a nice pinch of salt because, as Lindy says, you can always add salt, but you can't take it back out. And a nice couple turns of pepper. And we're going to just let this simmer for about 20 minutes and let it get real sauce-like. So to some salted boiling water, add your large pasta shells. Turn the heat down and boil them very, very gently. Because they have a tendency to break, you want to keep the heat low. We're going to cook these for about 2 to 3 minutes less than the package says because they will continue to cook in the sauce once we make our dish. Marinara sauce is ready. The shells are cooked. Now we're going to get on to the filling part of the program. We're going to start with a little extra virgin olive oil, as we always do. I use olive oil or grapeseed oil almost exclusively. These are about 3/4 a cup, maybe half a cup of diced onions. Go for a cup, you know, I mean, it's all a matter of taste. About half as much of diced carrots. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Jerry Seinfeld's wife who, you know, hides vegetables in food. Carrots are naturally sweet, and while my son wouldn't eat many fruits or vegetables, carrots with some salt sliced up, he would always eat. Natural sweetness, you don't have to add sugar to your sauce if you're using some carrots. Then here I have a mixture of ground lean turkey, which is the original recipe. To this one I've added about 1/4 pound of some Italian sausage, hot sausage that I had in the ice box, which I wanted to use up, and I thought it would make a nice combination. Thought about pancetta. I'm probably going to try this recipe with pancetta. It's a good alternative. In here is a mixture of 2 tablespoons of flour, 1 tablespoon of oregano, and a good pinch of hot peppers, pepperoncinis. In the Cooking Light recipe, they use like a half a teaspoon of oregano. Just wasn't aggressive enough for me, so I just added some. And this is a combination of Reggiano Romano and Asiago cheeses grated together. You could use either one or both, so your choice. So I've got my pan going over a medium-low heat. Again, stainless steel. We want to heat up the pan before we add the oil and the food so it doesn't stick. I don't know about you, but sometimes I find technology to be more challenging than cooking the actual meal. It takes me longer to figure out how to set up this camera than it does to make this dinner. I'm going to start by adding some extra virgin olive oil. Use a good brand. It's a very good brand. Add your onions. Give them a good saute. Cooking with the stainless steel pans is that they're, first of all, really well made, but mostly you can use whatever utensil you want in it. I still use a wooden spoon because I like the sound of it. The sound of metal against metal, to me, that's grating, and I like to relax when I cook, so this just sounds nicer to me. So that's why I use a wooden spoon. But you could use a metal one if you want, if it doesn't bother you. Now we're going to add the carrots. And we're going to let them cook until they get a little bit dry. So we're going to add just a little bit more olive oil. Moisten it up. And then we are going to add our meats. We're going to cook these, breaking them up with the spoon, just until they lose their pink color. We're not going to brown them. We're cooking them over a low heat. Cooking for about 7 minutes. You can see it is mostly gray. I've been stirring it, breaking it up with my spoon because you want the pieces to be small in the shells. You definitely don't want them to be too big. And this is about perfect. I hate to say it's cooked to a perfect gray because to me gray meat sounds horrid, but in this application it's actually proper. In this and many other Italian dishes, you want the meat to only gray. You don't really want it to brown. So to this now I am going to add our flour, oregano, and red pepper flakes. And mix that in. Now by mixing it in now, you won't have any lumps. You don't have to worry about the flour getting lumpy when you add the wine. And you're going to cook it for a little while to cook off that raw flour taste. So give it a few minutes, stir it in really, really well. And our red wine, this is a dry red wine. Now remember what I've always said, don't cook with anything you wouldn't drink. But if you like a wine that is really oaky and sweet, try to buy something a little leaner. You want to buy a wine that is got some fruit and some tartness to it. So a dry red wine. This is Italian, so a Chianti, a Sangiovese. Would both be good choices. You could get away with a Merlot as long as it's not an over-oaked Merlot. And I use that word over-oaked a lot because it means that the wine has too much woody flavor to it. So the fruit and so on is not coming through. So you just add this. This is about 6 ounces. I want to make sure it covers everything. Husband's home. You can see there's another computer there. You may have noticed my computer's up, and that's because I'm always on my computer, like talking to y'all on Twitter and Facebook. So if you want to friend me, go to Twitter, look for LindySez, and or Facebook and look for LindySez, and you can be up to date every second of every day. Okay, so now we're going to, our meat has cooked. It's cooled. We've added about a half of our cheese to it. So here we are, and we're about ready to start stuffing our shells and making this delicious meal. Shells all stuffed, and because I cooked them so gently, only one broke. So I have these wonderful shells to make something. They're really good fried, so you can do that. And now I'm going to put sauce over the top of them. The rest of the sauce, which we made, the marinara sauce, is delicious. Put that over the top. Your family's going to love this. This is so good. It's like spaghetti, but not. Then we're going to take some aluminum foil, put it over the top, seal it up well, and we're going to stick it into a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes, and we'll uncover it, put some more cheese on the top, and cook it for another 5 minutes. It should be hot and bubbly and lovely. Cook for about 15-20 minutes. You want to put the cheese on it. You want it nice, hot, and bubbly. You put the additional cheese on top of it, and we're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes before we serve it. We're going to put our plates in the oven because serving on hot plates just makes sense. It keeps the food hot. So we're going to serve our dinner now. I have plates. These were actually made by Wedgwood for Nola, Emeril Lagasse's place in New Orleans. He didn't like these. He chose a much brighter pink and green thing. I liked them. My husband bought them for me at the discount store Wedgwood runs for employees that get to actually pick and choose what they want. So just a song, I use them all the time. I just love them. I like the little swirl. The new ones have the swirl, but it's a little different. It's not quite as funky. And we're going to take these now, and we're going to spoon them out on our plate. 3 of them is a good serving. Always room for seconds. Got my Chianti. We're going to serve this with a nice Chianti because it's very Italian. Let's see how this thing tastes. I'm liking the addition of the Italian sausage to this. It's not quite cooking light, but it's not cooking heavy either. So, I can't wait to try this with pancetta. LindySez, cheers to good food, wine, and friends.